Okay, this is a 135D, one that looks like the Spider-Man, spider webs on the tank. This thing, the reason why it was so cheap, I think this was the $100 one. All the bolts were stripped on this rear axle, like somebody wasn't checking the tightness, but all the bolts were stripped. So I went to Dickie Bub's, a hardware store up the street, and just bought 4 new nuts and welded them in there. After I cut the old ones out with a little Dremel tool wheel, cut the welds, and now all these bolts are all brand new. So I'm gonna, plus this weld here, this piece needed to be welded back on, so I welded that back on. And this thing's all ready to put back together. The axle bearings seem okay, nice and free. And this is an update to this guy. Why this one was so cheap? Because the rear end was falling out of it. If once you start riding, if you don't keep these bolts tight, this axle just works the bolts back and forth, so just check them. But I hope to get this thing running tonight once I get this rear axle back on. All right, on the web, this should make it a lot easier for anybody trying to figure one of these wiring harnesses out. Like I said, the new wiring harnesses you get cheap on eBay, the wires are thin. So if you can just fix what you have, then you'll get it going and not have to put that thin wiring harness in. All your stuff will work, like your gear indicator, your lights, everything that was meant to run. But so far I found a bad ignition switch and a missing taillight. And it wasn't starting. The starter button wasn't making contact. I took it apart and I repaired the contact when the button was pressed. But I found these 2 diagrams on the web and did a screen capture. So here's what it looks like without the alarm system, okay? This is just a basic switch, the wiring harness, just to get something running, no lights. We do have a brake taillight switch, but they don't show it going to a light. So, but this alarm system, normally when you turn off your ignition switch, it kills the engine. And what it does, when it's on off, you can see here, it's grounding. This is G for ground, the green. G is usually ground throughout the whole bike or engine. Here's G, which goes to off when you're flipped to off. And then it also shorts this black with white tracer wire, which also goes to the safety switch. And it just kills the spark. Okay, here's CDI, black with the white. So you can see there's ground. I think all it does is really ground. It grounds out. It's what your kill switch hooks to. So that center wire on your CDI connector is always a black with a white, and that's your kill switch. So all you're really doing is grounding that kill switch wire, the black with white, when you turn your key off. So when you add the alarm system, what they did was, here's the ground, and when you turn it off, it grounds this, I don't know if that's a B, blue with a blue tracer, I don't know. But they're just cutting the black with a white wire. They're just interrupting that signal here that used to go to the switch and adding the alarm. So when you turn off your switch, that must activate this alarm. I don't even know what triggers that thing, but I just know the key fob, when you press the start button on it, it'll crank the starter. So if you want to bypass, if you want to get rid of your alarm, it looks like you can just hook these two wires together here and take that unit out. But as you can see here, down here is your start button. When you press your start button, it's getting power from one of the brake switches, okay? So the B here is your battery power. Battery comes all the way back around from the ignition switch. So when your battery goes through the 10 amp fuse, use a test light. If you get power through your fuse, your light will come on there and there if your fuse is good. Your power will come on through your ignition switch. I've had to replace my ignition switch because the contacts were all corroded. Water got in there, turned everything green. Switch is cheap. I think it was $6 on eBay. Got two of them. I had to lengthen the wires, use the wires off the old switch, just unsoldered the bottom. And now I've got a new key, but the hole, I got to tighten up the hole a little bit because it's smaller diameter than the original key with a big nut on the back. But the key was bad. Now that I have that fixed, I wanted to find out why my start button wasn't working. The start button contact was bad. You can get a new switch on eBay or Amazon, and it gets its power when you hold one of the brakes, either the upper right hand brake or your foot brake. As soon as you hit one of those brakes, then now your start button will work. And if your switch is off on that handle by the start button, you won't get a spark. So make sure you're on run when you hit your start button, and you'll have spark, just like I verified with my the video before this section of my the video. Okay, so you hit the remote button, the start button on the remote, and the reason why it runs the starter, the remote start, is because it's running this wire hot right to the same wire that the start button's hitting, which energizes the solenoid, which closes the contacts, which energizes the starter motor right from the battery. Here's your battery, goes to the solenoid, solenoid goes to the starter. As soon as that coil is energizes and closes the magnetic contact. So the alarm, since it's still working, I'm going to leave it in there. The remote start might be pretty cool to have, but you just have to make sure. I just have to find out why I'm not getting any spark now. So what you can do, this wire, if this wire is grounded, you won't get any spark. So you can use an ohm meter or test light, because you can see this black with a white tracer goes right into your spark box. I already verified my spark box is good, my CDI. So I can ohm this out or use my test light to see if it's grounded. If it's not grounded, I know my kill switches are open and I should be getting spark. So hope this helps somebody out. This is for it's the ATA 135D model I'm working on. I found this the circuit diagram on the web. So it's pretty simple. Some of these guys can't figure out this alarm system and say it's pretty complicated. It's not. You just need a test light and you can figure it out. And then here it is again without the alarm. All right, good luck. I should have it running tomorrow, and I'll have another follow-up video on that. Update on this little Taotao 135D. I found out the model was an ATA-135D. Been working all day trying to figure out this wiring system that they have. It's got this alarm with a remote start and remote kill. The Stator had a bunch of wires cut inside of it. So I opened that up, fixed all those wires. The gear indicator switch had a bunch of broken wires. I fixed that. So now I had to test the stator because I wasn't getting any spark through its wiring. But I have one of these other replacement wiring harnesses that everyone's selling on eBay. You know, I think it was $30 complete with the stator CDI rectifier. Alright, sorry the end of that video cut out, but I was able to test for spark with this other wiring harness, telling me my stator repair was good. I got a spark with my new coil. I was able to unplug the old coil and hook it up, and it's good. I was able to use the CDI box from the old CDI box, which was a little bit bigger than the aftermarket one, but it was getting spark, so it's all wired the same. So now I just need to get the thing running tomorrow. I got my start button working, and I'm going to show what I found on the web. This is the simplified wiring diagram for almost any one of those bikes or quads from China. Very simple, but mine has an alarm system on it, so I'm going to show what I found here. This is what the alarm is doing and how they hooked it in. So if you want to remove it, normally your ignition key, when you flip the switch to off, it's showing here that these two contacts are connected together, okay? One's ground, it's your green wire usually, and then this other wire without the alarm system would normally go to this black with a white tracer, and all that does is kill. So you can see it's hooked in all the kill switches, and it goes to the CDI box, that middle pin on that 6-pin connector, that black with a white tracer. That's your kill button, your kill wire that kills your spark, okay? Whether you turn off your key or hit a kill switch or one of your safety switches here, anything, the handlebar kill switch, all it does is ground out that wire. So when they added this alarm, I was trying to decide if I wanted to take it out or not, but it still remote starts, and having that remote kill would be nice too. So I'm going to leave it in because I can hit the start button and it cranks for so many seconds. So as you can see here, when your switch is on, your ignition key switch is on, and you hit your remote, the start button, all it does is energize this wire here that goes down to your relay, your starter solenoid, or relay, whatever. It's a starter solenoid. It's the big one with the battery wires on it. One goes to the starter, one goes to the battery. That also comes from the starter switch wire, which needs, I got mine working by following all this down, making sure the brakes were plugged into the right connectors. So if you squeeze your handbrake on the handlebar or your foot brake, you should be getting power right here at your start button. So I got my starter circuit working now by making sure these plugs are right in the right connectors. There's a lot of 2-pin plugs down there. Use the test light. This was the battery wire, because this battery wire comes all the way from the fuse. So if you use a test light, hook your one end to the ground of the battery or the frame. Test light should light there at the battery. Should light up at the one end of the fuse. Should light up at the other end of the fuse if your fuse is good. And going into your ignition switch, it's usually black and red. Sometimes they're flipped, but it doesn't matter, because when you turn on the key, your black and red, the red actually becomes the black wire coming out of the switch. So now the black is hot, so we can kind of call that battery. So you can see this goes all the way around, goes around, and goes around. and then it shows that you have to hit your brake switch in order for your start button to work. So what I found in my case, my stator wires are all shot. I fixed all those. I don't know what happened. Somebody was in there, or somehow maybe the case came loose and the wires are chopped up where they came out. So I fixed all those. I had to test my stator, use my other cheap wiring harness to test my stator with my brand new CDI and my brand new ignition key, everything, just to make sure I had spark at my spark plug. So far I found a bad ignition key. The water got in it and the contacts are green. You can use a test light and it either comes on or doesn't come on when you turn that ignition switch to on. You need that reliable, or else you're going to be stuck out somewhere when your engine dies because you lost contact. I needed to fix the stator wiring. I had to change the ignition key, and my start button wasn't making contact. Very easy stuff to find if you have a test light, okay? So the alarm system, all it does is break that wire. So if you want to rip this out, all you have to do is connect these two wires together. That'll put it back to a normal setup, but my key fob still works, so I'm gonna keep that. So everything should be ready to go as soon as it cranks when I hit the start button. I just need to test the wiring, because all I can do is use a test light or a continuity tester between ground and this wire right here, the black with the white wire. If it shows that there's any continuity, that means one of these is shorted or closed, and it's keeping my spark down. So tomorrow, I just had to quit tonight. It got cold outside. Tomorrow I should be able to hit the start button while it's cranking and see spark. So as soon as I see spark, we put gas back in the carburetor, hook it back up, and this thing should run. So it'll be nice hearing it run. All right, new video coming with it running. All right, here's my setup. I used to test all my original components. I had to open this up so I could see where all the wires went. Really, it's not too complicated. So, to test my stator, I made this little wiring harness to go to this harness and plugged it right into the stator, and I was able to get spark. So it was telling me my CDI was good, but this was brand new. Ignition switch was brand new. So I was able to test all that just with this new wiring harness. So once I got that tested and saw spark, I was able to pull my CDI off of here, plug it in here. My CDI checked good. I was getting spark here. So then I unplugged the coil and ran its wires down to my coil. So I was able to test that coil and saw spark at my spark plug there. So I knew that coil was good. So then hooked up the original wiring back to its stator, plugged in the original CDI, checked the circuit with, like I showed in the diagram, to make sure none of this was grounded with my continuity meter, and all of it was good because I wasn't getting a ground to this black with white wire check. So there was no connection, so I knew my kill switch wasn't activated. And now when I turn on my key, this is an aftermarket key, got that off of eBay. I extended the wires, but the hole now is too big So I'm gonna have to modify the hole to make it smaller if I want this snap-in key switch to fit in that hole. So I think I'll make a ring and maybe screw it on in a couple spots, but that ring has to be tight enough to hold the switch in so it doesn't spin. But now when remember, you gotta hold the brake for my starter switch to work. So since I'm holding the phone, I'm gonna have to hold the foot brake just to show that I have spark. When I hit the start switch, see if you can see that spark. See, so I know everything is ready to go. I just have to give it gas, put some gas to the carb. I already filled up the tank, and this thing should be running. I've got spark, I've got start, kill switches are all off. This thing should run. So let's get another video. Let me give it some gas and we'll get this thing started. All right, here we go. Got the spark plug back in. We're gonna turn on, got the gas hooked up, got the gas turned on. Let's turn on the switch. Let's push the brakes so the starter button works. Make sure the key's on, make sure the switch is on up there, and I should be able to hit this, and we should get spark and maybe even start. Let's see what happens with this. Oh, okay, it's running. So I'm gonna warm it up, change the oil. Who knows how old this oil is. When I got this thing, the air cleaner wasn't hooked up. So look at this thing. It is nasty looking. So you can get a new air cleaner on eBay, or I can dunk that one in something and solve it and clean it out. Degreaser, because brand new ones are cheap. But I have that one, I'll clean it, it's not missing. So I'm gonna tape this all back up. And one thing about these towels, it had this big rubber boot thing over a bunch of these wires here. So I might just tape them all up and make them look neat. But it's running, so as soon as I get all this cleaned up, should be able to maybe take it for a ride. Put the shifter back on. All that's all done. I put a new shock on it because the other shock, it's like the shaft wasn't screwed into the piston anymore inside here, because it was extended. New shock on eBay, I think $27. New taillight, LED taillight. I drilled a couple holes, put that in there and siliconed it in because the hole in the back was open. Just have to extend those wires. And got my new seats. Got new seats in there. So that finally, I can finally, oh, and I also ordered a foot guard. This one was missing because somebody had taken this off and worked on it, and the guy that I bought these from doesn't seem to have the 2 foot guards that, you know, look like that on that side. So I bought 2 lefts because this one was missing and then that one was missing. So now that this one's running, everything's been replaced that needed to be replaced. Tires are still good. I'm gonna put this one down after I change the oil and then start working on that one. That one's a 125D. This is a 135D, a little bit bigger. Right, so once I fix that ignition switch, the remote start works on this guy, the remote kill, remote start, which is one of these. So I noticed you can hit hit the start button and the thing cranks. It'll probably start too. Let me try that. Turn the key switch back on. Hit the button. There we go. I don't know if it's supposed to start on its own without throttle. Okay, here we're gonna hit the remote.